Hey, Keith.
Cameron, what's going on?
I don't know, man. Fewer horns and gunshots on this side of the country than over there.
Yeah, it's been so before we got on, we were just talking about the neighborhood and how things are changing.
And you live in a
And
nice hood. Like, that's what we were talking about. It's like, you don't,
yeah, I don't
it's
want to
like,
dox myself like on the
no,
internet, but I live
no.
in a good part of life. And there was a shooting on the corner, and it was some dude who was well known to steal packages, Amazon packages of all, off of doorsteps. And he got in a beef with somebody else, and he got shot. And it's like I was sitting here one night, I heard pop. I'm like, what the hell? I thought it was just some riffraff, like people light up fireworks because it's just whatever. It's New York, and nope, it's a guy got shot, and you know it got
Stand your
really
ground for
quiet.
your Amazon packages, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, you're on my porch, bro.
someone really needed that cutting board. What are you gonna do,
Mhm. Maybe it was
man?
shoelaces and buttons. Who knows, Like,
Oh,
survival
yeah.
gear. Don't
Actually, it was
take my
funny too because,
shoelaces.
dude, the cop was like, you never really know. He's like, we went to this house a couple weeks ago, and guns and Kevlar vest, and it's a brownstone. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't ask him if they were like legally or illegally like possessed or whatever, but I don't know. He was cool for a cop in New York. I wouldn't want to be a New York cop right
No,
now. I
that's
think
a
it'd
tough
be,
job. It's a really tough job.
yeah, it's getting crazier with not the social cohesion, but just like the social norms are kind of breaking down a little bit. People, I mean, you can feel the inflation with like food and stuff. There's more like bullshit, petty crime kind of going on. People are driving both ways. Dude, there was an ambulance that went almost about to go on the bridge from Flatbush. He went, instead of going like the right side where it's like the direction, he went the other side against traffic, stopped, did a 3-point turn, came out, and then looped around. Like he caught himself. He's like, "Oh shit, I'm going on the wrong side of the bridge." Like, I don't know how he.
Jeez.
So I'm like, I feel like people's brains got like cooked a little bit or something, or I don't know what's going on. So
Something's up. I mean, something's
yeah.
definitely up.
So yeah,
So
this is
this is the
so
something's up episode.
yeah, something's up. Something doesn't smell right, and it's not just and even that is New York is kind of like a funky smell, but it's gotten funkier recently. I don't know if it's like an intuition kind of thing that's taken off,
Yeah.
but
So
but
again,
yeah,
we've been talking
so
about this for a while. Like we wanted to. So it's almost like the upfront. Some scenes from this might not be applicable or appropriate for certain viewers. Viewer discretion advised. Like, this is not that, but this is, we're going to be upfront. If you want to hear about business or design thinking or systems thinking that is applied to business necessarily, this particular episode may not necessarily be for you. But we do think there's applicable tie-ins to this, and we do think that this is not doom and gloom. This is prepare yourself because things are getting weird, as we were just saying. But there are reasons to be hopeful.
yeah, I there all the things we were podcasting about before prior, they kind of grow from a little bit of this kind of kernel of thinking. I mean, you and I both kind of see systems everywhere and just how everything kind of connects. And when you do like customer experience, user experience, design thinking, you're kind of looking at everything. It's not just like the design or kind of how something functions, but it's how do you make it sustainable? And then with just change accelerating right now, it's how do you kind of like have an additive impact, on yourself, on your family, where it's like, if you have like compounding interest in a bank account, how do you have compounding effect in your decisions, in your actions, in your relationships, in your job? And I think that's people are seeing that. The youngins are kind of like wanting that because they see the potential. And I think a lot of other people don't understand, or they haven't been able to put their finger on. That's the thing I think they were kind of promised that isn't really returning anymore. So it's like, that's kind of what we're getting into right now.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a little bit more of how we see the world in a unique way from this episode.
I mean, I think it's more than just sums up. Like, to your point, if you are looking at the different patterns of things that are going on, macro to micro, right? Like everybody's
Yep.
got their macro view of the world, wherever they sit, whatever they do, and then everybody has their micro pattern of the world and their micro view of the world. You bring those two things together and you start to see kind of the bigger picture as it's developing. You see how the macro world around you is impacting the job that you're in, the thing that you're doing, your family, like the dynamics between you and other human beings. And, we've been talking about this for the last 6 months as we've been doing this podcast. And this is one of the things that, we felt like we wanted to bring in at some point and talk about just this, like, it's kind of like a WTF moment for human beings. So,
it's unprecedented.
It is. And I mean, and maybe I'll throw out a little bit of prompts for us to kind of parse through, right? So,
all right,
when we're talking about this, we're talking about the global political environment, the sort of the switches in media, the switches in technology, specifically AI. We've talked about these things and how it impacts business, but it's impacting the world around us, positively and negatively, right? Like this is not to cast fear or loathing against any of these things. It's more about like awareness and a prompt for anybody that chooses to listen to this to think through these things, right? Like you have to come to your own conclusion around what you think is happening in the macro environment and take that forward into your micro environment, hopefully to make things better, right? Like this entire series of podcasts has been about that. It's like, let's put perspective out there, parse through it, and then hopefully you take that forward to make your job, your position, your career, your project better. And this is more of the same. So I think you and I keep coming back to these societal impacts of these factors, right? Like how does the media equation, if you will, factor into it? How does AI overlaid into that media equation, and that, it's disrupting communication, it's disrupting the media itself. I think the other thing that you and I have talked about is, for lack of a better term, America's military industrial complex, being a flex at different times in our history to make change happen. And are we being displaced by somebody else who's doing the exact same thing? Or are we in this like proxy war?
Multiple
proxy wars on multiple fronts for supremacy of somebody's military industrial complex, whether it's ours or somebody else's. I don't know. I mean,
and the way war is being waged has changed from bombs and bullets to bits because it's more efficient. Yeah. There's a lot. There's okay. So I think you and I see things, or have a really good, one of our special skill sets is the ability to go from macro to micro, and not just like macroeconomic or macro political, but seeing big picture to understanding, moving little details, little levers, how that's going to impact bigger details downrange. And this is kind of the systems thinking brain. We're still figuring out if you can teach this or not. I think this is going to be a huge skill for people in the future, just to be able to understand as these systems deteriorate, how to like not just survive, but like leverage and thrive on the kind of like aftermath and the change. And that gets into like another idea, which was, what we affectionately talk about as like the monolith. What was like an innovation in the past becomes like a legacy system over time. So like a lot of, your experience, both of us at Macy's, but more so like the stuff that you've been working on, these old IBM, mainframe machines, which they were an innovation because it was a computer that wasn't gonna stop computing if it like the power got pulled out. It was fault tolerant computing, and it got tied to your finances or your econometrics, so that it's basically your inventory and your balance sheet, which is tied to debt and all this other stuff, which gets like complicated. But because it was so stable, you couldn't change it or update it very easily. And all these, that enabled all these, companies and new industries like airlines and shipping and retail to kind of come online. And so that idea of being able to see patterns at like a very high altitude, almost into space, literally in space to like the ground level, almost like the atomic level, and then seeing kind of not just size, but like past, present, future, and how something that was a legacy, whether it was somebody who's been in a job for 30 years, they wouldn't want to change. And that's kind of like a cultural thing that would be like an impediment versus the way it's always been done this way. And, working in technology and design, we, those are two things we do really well. And I think they're just kind of like natural. It's kind of like breathing, right? And that's helped us no matter what we do, right? Whether it's like managing or immigration or whatever. And we've passed an inflection point now in society where there's no turning back. And for me, I don't know, you can speak to yourself about this, but I look at astrology as like a giant clock. And if the planets and the orbital mechanics are hyper regular, then they're like just different hour hands on a bigger clock. And what you can do is you can look at the past where planets were relative to today, and you can say what happened then, what happened today. And that for me is like pulling a layer cake of context.
Well, I
And
mean,
it
I
doesn't
think if
always
we're all
mean,
if we're
yeah,
all made out of the same atomic stuff, and the same atomic stuff is everywhere, right?
yeah, oh yeah.
Like
I
that
mean, the
that
sun
plays
has an
into it.
impact. I do too. I don't know how to, this is so, Cam and I are, well, how do I say this?
You just say it. You
We
just
are
say it.
wondering what our own place in this world is now as humans, as technologists, as business people, as creatives. Everyone's freaked out about like AI and like, is it going to take my job? And then the ones you train on the AI, they're freaking dangerous because if they understand how to leverage the tech, they can screw the company, or they can become so you can become so dependent, like if you as a key man risk, that if they leave, you're screwed. And then they're going to go leave. They're going to work just hard enough to find the next thing, and then probably go build their own thing, which the real good designers and the good engineers are doing right now. I mean, because unless they're not entrepreneurial, but you're probably watching this, you probably are entrepreneurial. But I didn't want to pull in that much yet, because I don't know. Some people are like, "Oh, it's astrology. It's bullshit." It's like, whatever. It's fine. You don't have to believe it. It doesn't make a difference. But when you look at the patterns, like what we're going through right now is there are many layers of cycles. The first one with like when you have Saturn and Neptune coming together, it's like structure and dissolving of structures, or like the media. It rules the media. Neptune rules the media. When those two come together in like a synodic cycle, when it starts, it hasn't happened since like 3441 BC. So it's like a 6,400, 6,500 year cycle, which pushes the limits of like the Gregorian calendar, recorded history. Like we're going to come to grips with like a lot of new information about where do we come from? What are we doing here? Were we ever on Mars? We know how many iterations of the Matrix have we gone through, right? Look at this whole 3-eye atlas thing in the sky that no one really knows. Like, is it a comet? Is it who knows what it is? Like, it's not about like aliens and to become like the ancient aliens guy or whatever, which whatever. Kind of funny. But you can look at these cycles. So there's a big like zeitgeist, a big societal shift about like what the hell's going on, that it's like it's destabilizing and rematerializing Saturn Neptune, a new physical body, Aries, of like who we are and what we're doing as like humans. Like what does it mean to be human? That is a huge thing everyone's thinking right now. And you also have Pluto, which takes 250 years to come around, in Aquarius. And the last time that happened, where we're at right now, was the birth of the United States and the French Revolution. So obviously, you can feel that vibe going around.
Sure.
We had the Protestant Reformation. That was Saturn, Pluto, and Capricorn. That was COVID. That led to the 30 Years' War. That was an acceleration of media through the printing press. But today it's AI. So instead of mass producing media, it's mass producing cognition, and the ability to have the cognition learn on itself and grow in a whole new way. And every major war transit the US has gone through is happening all at the same time, like right now. And that's Uranus and Gemini, and that Uranus and Gemini, that 84-year cycle, that's the fourth turning. It's every 20. That's what that basically comes from, and that's Uranus revolution insight. So all these things are happening, and I like these things because it helps me pull signal from noise and kind of make sense contextually on what's going on. And we talk about this
So
in the
Keith,
background.
can you break it down further? Because I think one of the things that you did for me was to show me the charting, right? And like back to the macro micro, like what Keith was just talking about is the macro, right? Like this is what's happening in the overall universe that has an effect on the planet, on humans, and humans organized into some sort of societal construct. But like one of the things that you did for me that helped me kind of ground some of this is like we went micro when I'm like, I'm asking you about my son. Like this is what's happening. And you were like, okay, hang on. Like I need to know these data points. And then based on that, I can identify like where your son fits into this timeline and the position of where he is in the universe at the point of his origin.
Yep.
And based on that, you were like, hey, here's what's happening micro. He's the dot here, you know, on the planet in the universe.
Yep.
So I'm not asking you to go down micro like on a human being, but like can you go back and maybe explain exactly what you're talking about in terms of the positioning of the planets? Because in some ways, like the way I see it, and I could totally be wrong, and please correct me with anything that I don't have right. Like the way that I've seen it is all of this structure of the universe is constantly moving and shifting, but it moves in a organized fashion in a cycle, like a clock.
Yep.
And 100%. These things are happening like, you know, in these micro movements over thousands, if not millions of years, but they're not like, it's not doing necessarily like this. It's kind of doing, it's following a pattern, right? And so where we sit compared to the other things around us is going to be the exact placement of all of these things at some previous period of time is what the charting actually shows. Like, okay, at this point in human history, like the alignment of all of these things look like this. And now today, the alignment of all of these things looks like this. Because I think a lot of people don't get that it's about very tangible scientific things. It's timing, positioning, the relationship between things in that position over time.
Yeah. So basically, when somebody asks about like position, like, to pull a chart, you need birth date, time, and location, right? And that's because on the eastern horizon, you basically see how the kind of chart breaks down. Now, each of these planets, they move slower or faster. So this guy is like Uranus, right? So if you look at like days, he's about to go retrograde. So it's moving slower in Taurus relative to, say, the moon is like zipping around here, right? So the closer the planets are to the sun, the faster they move around, you know, the faster the cycle is basically. So there's a bunch that are happening. Like these two guys, like these are basically planets, these are signs. So this is Saturn, this is Neptune, and this is Aries. This is actually when it's about to come together, is actually in February. So this is a big date. Like these two guys coming together here in this sign hasn't happened for like 6,500 years. So this is kind of like the bigger overarching, like it's probably going to be questioning a lot of people with like religion and kind of what they believed as religion, but it's going to start new religions with like AI cults and things and just weird, crazy new belief systems. So this is kind of like at the highest level what's happening. So if it's Saturn giving structure to kind of like Neptune, some belief, some vision, Aries is the start of the zodiac. That's why Lunar New Year starts when the new moon, I think it's the first new moon, but Aries is basically like the start of, it's the very first sign. That's why it starts in like March or whatever. I think it's March. I have to double check.
I'm in Aries.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. The other big one is this guy down here, Pluto, and and if you look at like years, like it jumps a lot. 26, and then it's 25. I mean, it moves a lot slower.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time Pluto was in Aquarius it was the birth of the country. So everything that makes the United States what it is, a strong military, strong rule of law, Constitution, Bill of Rights, that's all getting like renegotiated right now. That's why everyone's like they wanted to rip and replace during COVID when the defund stuff that was Saturn Pluto. Hang on, let's go to. Hang on. Right. So like if Saturn, if Capricorn was like the monolith, the old structure, Pluto's destroying the structure of the old because Pluto's about death and rebirth. It's about like destroying. It's a transformational thing. The old way is gone. So all these cycles are coming together. Like having one of these is massive, but having multiple cycles come together at the same time is like unheard of. That's kind of what's going on right now. I mean, this is like a much larger. I mean, I haven't thought through like how to actually like visualize how to show this, but you're right. There are cycles that are all happening right now, and it makes a lot of sense. So like AI taking over, like we're seeing technologies that are going to be like human horrors beyond our comprehension kind of thing. That's Pluto and Aquarius, the death and rebirth of what humanity is going to be like. Aquarius, but Aquarius is very technological and almost like alien and foreign. And when that trines, when it has like I think it's like a 60 or 120-degree angle to Uranus and Gemini. Uranus and Gemini was the last World War II transit. It happened during the Civil War. It happened during the American Revolution. That's the fourth turning route. So when those two come together, you're having this technological revolution that's going to enable the transformation for better or worse of like the human populace. So you're probably going to see things like being able to grow, new limbs or growing body parts kind of thing, like tissue engineering is going to take off. You're also going to see bioterrorism where someone's going to drop a bomb, but it's going to be like some airborne thing that's going to take out a populace based on their genetics. Like that is the level of kind of horror and craziness that you can see. Or if we have this, as we have this demographic collapse right now globally, guess what? You don't have to have a kid, in the womb anymore. You can have 10 kids at once in incubators, like Demolition Man style. And that could potentially happen and, kickstart the population. So like those kind of things are happening. So when I see, the systems part, it's like, how do you actually make this happen? That comes from like the tech design part. But then I also think about the astrology of like, okay, what is kind of happening on a broader level right now? It's kind of like the undercurrents, pushing or pulling kind of society.
Yeah. And I mean, I think maybe the other thing to say in there as well is this is another way of analyzing and making sense out of what feels at times like a random trend of events, because I will say we tend to see things even outside of the astrological in terms of trends, but the trends at times feel random. And again, what you just laid out is it's not really random, right? Like if you can start to look at the bigger picture and put time to spatial, like where we are, our place in space, both as people on the planet, it's not that random.
Yeah. And I don't think it's so predestined though either. It's almost like a weather report, right?
True. It's like it could go this way, right?
Or like it's snowing outside. Do you want to go and shovel? Or do you want to like hang out and stay warm? It's like, okay, fine. But if you stay inside all day, you might miss an opportunity to do something else. So it's almost like
data.
Yeah. Data, it's like waves of change. And it's like you can learn to surf to go do that. But if you want to, you're not going to go and surf, Nazaré in Portugal where there's like 80-foot waves that it'll kill you because it's just too damn big. It's too much to take on.
So one last thing, again, kind of bringing my son back in here because I was asking you about certain change that's going on.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into his because I don't want to like dox your son or like
no. Yeah, but like I'll keep it high level too. It's like
yeah,
yeah, like everything you said. This isn't one of those like everything Keith said. Like he's a mystic. He knew what was going on. It's like, and like the thing you weren't like. There were some things that you're like, look, the negativity is X, the positivity is Y. The positivity will like, increase over this timeline, right? And the negativity will decrease after this. Like broad, but as the 2 months now have worn on, a lot of like what you said was like absolutely correct. It was like this storm kind of came in,
Yeah.
and then it kind of dissipated, and all of a sudden it's like this. It's like the light bulbs are going on. It's like I finally get this, and the change in the like I finally get this, and now here are all these things that I can do. Like, and I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about my son. Here are all the things that I can do with this new knowledge. Was like spot on, and it was like,
Cool.
like struggle, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, I just need you to know, like, you're gonna get my report card, and I'm like getting straight A's, and I'm like, what?
That's awesome.
It's like, how did this happen? He's like, I don't know, I just kind of figured out a few things, and then like it unlocked all these other things, and once that unlock happened, he's like, it was funny because you kind of said it's like it's a download. A download's going to happen, and then at some point, that download becomes like an application, right? Like it's not just one thing. It's like apply here.
You got to reboot the system. He had a hard reboot, and he was like, what is going on? It's too much.
Yeah, I mean, he's not. It's not all like roses and everything's amazing, but like
it's life
on a few of the areas that were really struggle filled, he's just like, I totally get it. And I was like, fascinating.
So there are like big the planets are moving and doing their thing, and there's long wave cycles, and then as you're growing up from like a kid to a young adult to like an old adult, an old person, there's like a like a score or like a natural progression that you go through. So like when you're 18, you have like what's called your nodal return. It's when the nodes of the moon come back to where they started. It's like every 18 years. And then when you're 36, that's you have your second nodal return. You feel like you're 18 again, but you have 18 years experience. So it's kind of like there's echoes of like what was happening back then, but it's not something totally new, but you're into adulthood. And then when you're like 27 to like 33, it's the quarter life. It's like the adulting. It's the quarter life crisis. That's the Saturn return.
Yeah.
So you kind of like have an issue at 27. You make your decisions by 30, and then you see the outcome at 33. And wherever your Saturn is in your chart, that kind of tells you kind of where and kind of how things can kind of like come together. And then I was just looking at Alex's chart, and then you have angles where there's kind of like a vertical and a horizontal axis, which are kind of like when planets hit those pieces, hit those angles, significant things can happen, like effects you can feel, like they're effects that you can kind of like sense. And that's what I was looking at. And again, to me, it's like if you have all this noise and you don't know what to do, and you feel like something, and it's increasingly getting easier for a zero marginal cost monolith, like the cost of copies are free, so it's easier for less people to kind of control you through media, through whatever technology. Then resonance is the weapon to liberate yourself from the monolith. And resonance meaning like what is like a reflection of your own true nature as a human, like you as Cam, me as Keith, your son, like not you have to do this thing and act this way and eat this food. Like, here's the ideology. It's like, no. That's not, we tried that during COVID and that blew up because that was just like, it was a program they tried to like force download to, what it was like a prompt injection into like the subconscious of humanity, like faking something rather than showing somebody the light on a lighthouse so they find their way back to their own shore of their own true nature. That's what I see all this for. Yeah.
I mean, it's funny you bring that up because I'm kind of wondering about that as well. It's like, you know, we're like coming into 5 years on from the, I mean, it obviously kept going, but like from the worst possible point of COVID. Like people are isolated, they're separate, they're learning to operate in an environment and in a society that is now absolutely completely severed from its previous self, right?
100%. Yeah.
And my hypothesis is that we've not actually recovered from that. Like,
no,
we want to say that it's all okay. We want to say that, we've moved on, but we haven't. Like, we've fundamentally changed the fabric of how our society works. We've fundamentally changed the fabric of how we relate to one another or don't relate to one another. I mean, my work, like, to bring work into it just a little bit, but directly related to this, my work world has never gone back to what it was before.
Oh yeah.
Like, at my level and what I'm doing, I'm still incredibly isolated. And I'm wondering if from a leadership standpoint, when we talk about leadership, and I'm not just talking about corporate leadership, but I am wondering if there is a separation of our humanity in some way from our decision making, because we're just like you and I are sitting here across the country from one another. We sit in front of a screen, we interact with each other. Like, you and I have
this could be AI. We don't even know.
Who knows? Hopefully not. We have this pre-existing relationship that we've had to maintain with a technological barrier between us, and somehow we've made that okay in a number of ways, right? Like,
normalized
to our benefit, but also maybe to our detriment. Because it's awesome that I can push a button and see you, right? Like, it's awesome that I can do that. And you and I can interact with each other in our houses 3,000 miles away. Like, that's amazing. But when you look at that in a day in and day out basis, and the things that, like, I'll use me as an example, the things that I am now absolutely tolerant of that I was completely not able to cope with previously: loneliness, doing things by myself. Before I got on the call with you, I was down in my basement for over an hour, building a 3D printer. I mean, like, in a million years, I would have never been subterranean on a Saturday afternoon when the sun's out, building technology. I'd be like,
Pluto, in Aquarius, subterranean Pluto, technology. As I'm saying, there's all this shit, like the patterns. Yeah,
that's what. Yeah, totally.
By yourself, isolated, Pluto. Yeah.
And so these are the things that I'm kind of like, are we in this space now where we actually have to figure out how to reconnect, and what is the next step? Like, what do we need at this point, right? And I won't get into my day yesterday quite yet, because I think I want to save that until we're talking about what does rebuilding look like. But I'm really wondering about that, if the norms of what we valued, both in terms of a profession or a skill set or an expertise, what we value in our relationships with one another and how we fit into a societal construct or a corporate organizational construct. I'm starting to wonder whether or not that reboot is about to happen. And again, you can take a pessimistic view of that, hey, AI is going to wipe out the workforce, and say, shake hands with the person next to you and say goodbye because half of you are going to be here. I don't know, right? But I have to believe that's not the end state. I really have to believe that that's not the end state.
No. So I didn't give it enough thought to think about all these leadership teams are primarily probably remote and on Zoom all day, not just email and calls, but the continuous disembodiment of that makes a huge difference on.
I'm imagining that, it's if I don't see Cam on a Zoom anymore, it's It's a loss, but how much of a loss is it, right?
I mean, I guess it's like
He's
they
just one
did
less
calls and
box on the screen, you know?
and I mean, at some point, is it just going to be like your AI avatar that's going to like
Well, I told you about
speak?
that too.
Yeah, I mean, but that's coming too, though. So it's it. There's the with the Protestant Reformation, that was the Saturn Pluto in Capricorn. So COVID was like the major dislocation event, and just to kind of like quantify this, if you think about the Earth is 4.5 or so billion years old, somewhere around there, and there's like 8 or 9 billion people on the planet. COVID cost for the lockdown of a year, it was 2 Earth lifetimes spent in 1 year across all of humanity. When you think about like one person, 1 year, 8 billion people, that's 2x the life of like that. That's a massive, like you can't get your time back. So you think about like the collective investment that got synced up. That to me is like extraordinary. And we haven't gotten over that. Like, dude, I work with a Zoomer right now. She's really sharp, and I was telling she wanted to like negotiate and like talk to my boss about like getting a raise, and I'm like, don't talk to her today. She's like, I'm like, listen, number one, I'm telling you how she processes information. She's a lawyer. You got to bring the facts of the matter, and you can show them this way, and she's gonna listen. You can't be emotional about this. She's like, oh, and I'm like, and number two, wait till Tuesday. I'm like, Jupiter Venus conjunct together. I'm like, you're gonna make it's a better time to ask for a raise. She's like, really? I'm like, trust me. And then she did it. She got it. She was great. And she was like, huh, maybe this stuff like works. And but she's in the cohort that went to college like through Zoom. Like they had like real social distancing. And college, at least for me, like I hated high school. Like I was like, dude, get me out of this. This is like prison. And when we went to art school, I'm like, this is amazing.
Yep.
All these cool students into weird stuff, into like, I'm like, freedom. It was like Fridays were off, so you could like do projects or go out. What, it was great. So they like lost that. And like at that age, you're an adult in a sense, but you're still like developing as like a human and as like an individual, and like that their spirits got kind of like reprogrammed, reconfigured in a way. And I think there's going to be like we are going into a weird spot right now through this winter up until like I don't know, February, March, April of next year. And I think a lot of what you've been talking about, it's going to happen. I mean, dude, think about all these zombie companies that were kept alive as a result of like 0% interest rates for like 20 years almost, or 15 years.
Yep.
Like, I mean, credit to Jeff Bezos reinvesting the profit of the company back in. Like, they made a lot of baller decisions back in the day to like blow the company out, like grow it in a way. Not like just juicing the EPS, but actually putting it back into like productive use of the capital. Which you talk to anybody who makes real money, they're like, dude, the first few million are really fucking hard. And then after that, you understand like how to deploy capital. And that's the biggest part, is how do you actually get a return on the capital? Like ROIC, it's return on capital invested relative to your WACC, your weighted average cost of capital, your debt.
Yeah.
And, it's a weird time, but I think what you're saying is like spot on. And, especially what you're talking about with like seeing just you're talking about Portland, with your boss being there, and then having one news channel showing it like be the apocalypse, and the other being like, yeah, it's cool. And then, your boss being like, nothing's going on. Like no one's getting beat up, or nothing's blowing up. Yeah. Like, and, and those are their own monoliths as in themselves, because you had media consolidate. It's like Ben Thompson was complaining, the guy who runs Stratechery and used to do Exponent. He's like, no one's going to make you an anti-monopolist faster than trying to buy a ticket on Ticketmaster. Because it sucks. And they have all these charges.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, and this is what the people who are feeding our politicians are all monopolists. Peter Thiel, and for better or worse, like, no judgment. Cause like, it's, to me, the politicians, it's two sides of the same coin, because nothing galvanizes a group like a common enemy. And if you can point to something and label it, it's easier to keep you fighting each other rather than fighting the actual system. But at some point, the system's gonna, like, you can start seeing the system breaking down, right now. But it's not just here. It's everywhere. It's not just like leave the US, do it. Like, dude, China has their own issues. Brazil has their own issues. The Middle East, like everybody's got something they're gonna deal with. Like we're all resynced up at
Well, I
some
think
point
that's one
right
of the
now.
things too that like it's hard sometimes, but it's also one of the things that provides again, and a lot. I think one of the things that we were looking for is thematics in this particular episode in this discussion. Like stability and stasis is what most systems are moving towards, right? I don't, and when I talk stasis, I'm not talking about like calcified stasis, but like systems don't inherently move to a place where they implode. They do at some points, right? If something is so catastrophically wrong with an input or an output in a system, but the general steady state, is homeostasis. That's absolutely right. And so one of the things I think that I like, I've read the classics, Keith, as I'm sure you have as well. And the things that really drive me nuts is fucking doublespeak, right? And like I'm seeing that in our politics. I'm seeing that, and it's like, man, have these people not read Orwell? Have they not read Orwell? Right? It's like I'm telling you X, and like Peter Thiel's a great example. Like anybody that tells you that
I'm the Antichrist.
The feature of AI is like in anybody that's anti-AI is bringing about the Antichrist. It's like, are you kidding me? Have you not read the Bible, my man? Like everything is about like systems that number you, and like what's AI gonna do? I mean, come on,
it's gonna become
bro.
so. I mean, so think. I mean, and it's funny that he's like such an ardent proponent of AI, and he's giving a whole lecture on how he's not the Antichrist, but then he's like closed. It's like make it fucking public then. Don't close it off and like I don't know. It's
doublespeak,
dude, 100%. And but I think they also know that where we are in the cycle, that people either don't care. I think there's like a certain amount of time that if you say the same thing to a person, they kind of basically get reprogrammed, and you could show them irrefutable facts, and they still wouldn't change their mind. And I think that's what happened with COVID. That it doesn't matter, and this is what Trump normalized when he came to terms with his first presidential term. He was so ratchet that I'm like, dude, the thing he's going to normalize for the next like reaction of him is going to be like crazier, and the second or third or fourth iteration is going to be like, dude, it's going to be like a Machiavellian Che Guevara at this point. People are going to think it's a savior, but it's going to be like terrible.
Well, that's the
but
thing.
It's going to be a bunch.
That's the thing that I go to, right? Like, and where we come in, being a systems thinker in these moments is hard. It really is, because you're like, am I crazy? I mean, and you and I,
dude,
like,
it's idiocracy. You're like, what the f is going on? It's like, totally. Are you kidding me? Putting Gatorade on the fucking lawn? Like, what? It worked with Usain Bolt. Why wouldn't it work? It's like,
by the way, I'm sitting on a toilet right now.
It's efficient.
Totally forgot about that movie, but that movie's brilliant. Yeah, like it's really hard being a systems thinker in these moments, but
you're gonna feel crazy.
At the same time, it's like I honestly think that when the revolution comes, my friend, the systems thinkers are going to be leading the next incarnation of this, because I think what's actually happening is all of the things that you're talking about. So like the, maybe not the most macro, but the like geopolitical macro is everybody's found the hack. And the hack is you use the people who are the non-systems thinker and you organize them into your own crazy system, right? Like the brilliance of that particular strategy is brilliant, right? And I will say it's like Hillary Clinton's basket full of deplorables description, while maybe appropriate in her world, like what if you look at the pro use case of that, it was like, I'm going to organize everybody's fears and I'm going to appeal to everybody's fears. And then I'm going to tell you that I'm the solution to your fears. And your fears are so like emotionally driving that you are
Yep.
going to make bad decisions, because it's better to make a bad decision when you are moving in fear than it is to like actually be like, no, I totally don't believe this. Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like you pitch these things to people and it's like, hang on, I'm going to challenge your thinking there. And you start to move them outside of their silo and they're like, nope, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, and then you're like, you go to like the furthest reaches of the other silos that are still aligned into this platform. And you're sort of like, what about that? It's like, well, no, of course I don't agree with that. That's crazy. And you're just like, okay. It's like, let's just sit here in silence for a minute. Right.
Dude, it's like the adage of you can't convince someone to understand something that their job tells them they can't understand, or it's against their job description. Like with management, it's like, and this is,
I mean,
dude,
every
they teach
day in corporate is
you.
this.
God,
every day.
but that mindset, that mental model, or lack of adaptation in mental model, is what accelerates the destruction of the monolith. Because you just double down on the same stupidity. You just keep adding more Gatorade. You actually use water. It's just like, and it just breaks down.
But
That's
as we
happening
know,
everywhere.
it is. You're right. It is.
Like
and I mean,
all
maybe
over the place.
that's one of the problems is on a global scale. Maybe that's the difference, right? Like I think these things have happened in our history in pockets, and there's a bunch of other maybe like-minded or aligned perspective around these pockets of crazy. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. Like, you know, can we really decide the value of a human being based on their religion or their ethnicity? No, we cannot. Okay, let's stop that. But you know, maybe the fear has been, to your point, ratcheted up so high that, you know, it's starting to spread and it's spreading everywhere.
Survival. I mean, we're genetically programmed to survive. So it's like they teach you the amygdala hijack in social engineering school. If you like learn about how influence ops really work, and you know, someone bumps into you and you're like, you're angry, and then they pick your pocket in the process because they're controlling your emotional response and they can guide you where they want to go, and then whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
which isn't the way any kind of influence operation, or kind of like anything we did, was always like, how do you leave people better than they found you?
Yes.
And that kind of made it more hard, because it was, one, how do you get them to see outside of their normal pre-programmed value system? And then number two, how do you architect like double or triple wins, where it's like the customer, the business, the employee, like everybody benefits in some way. With the employee, it's like they don't want to do jobs they hate doing if they know they're going to get outsourced in a year. It's like, you know, they have lives and kids, and you know, because especially as like a man, if you have no purpose, like you go crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, what am I going to do with myself? You know?
Yeah.
So that's why I think what we did was effective, but what makes it so hard to reproduce, because I think a lot of other people, it's like they're not going to want to suspend their ego to see the opportunity to like understand information as opportunity, as a commodity that you can intentionally seed. And it's like open source. It's like you give something away for free intentionally, and you erode the value in some way, and you can move. It's the opposite of trying to like do something like nefarious or like theft. It's the inverse of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you know?
and again, you know, like we were always striving for do no harm. I think in those operations, we didn't do harm. But, you know, I can't say that that's not always the case. Like, I think if you believe that you're in any kind of situation that is systems related and you think no one is going to get harmed, I think you're fooling yourself, right? And
Yeah.
it is up to you to be, like what you just said, Keith. It is up to you to have a moral compass that it attempts to not do harm. And you know, certain things happen at our time in Macy's that probably did cause harm, but it was never done intentionally. It was never done, you know, at a time where it's like, well, we're going to benefit from this and somebody's going to get screwed, right? Like that was never our intention.
Because it's, one, it's bad karma, and two, it's gonna come back to you in some way. You're gonna open up yourself to get exposed because they're gonna want to leverage it. That's just how the game works.
The system demands stasis. It's like you cannot tip that balance, right? Like And that's the thing, I think, fast forward to now, that's the piece that I am hopeful for, which is that in some way we are going to have to redefine the value of what we're bringing in work, what we're bringing in knowledge, what we're bringing in schools. All of those things feels like we're at this jumping off point where it's like what we've done got us to this state, right? Some of it for the positive, some of it for the negative.
Yeah.
But for us to progress and redefine the system and then bring the system back into some sort of stasis, the inputs are going to have to change because the outputs demand that the inputs change. And that's the piece that I think I'm hopeful for, because I don't, and it's not a, hey, if you're a systems thinker or you're a design thinker or you have creativity or humanity, in these things, and you're not a person who's memorized the periodic table and, how strings work and programming, I'm not devaluing any of those skills. But what I am saying is, if you think about the fact that fundamentally the things that you and I spent 18 years in schooling before going, out and doing more schooling for graduate programs,
Hard
etc.
knocks. Yeah.
Like more than 80% of it was memorize this and know what it means. And the know what it means is the part that I think like now we're in a place where we need to double down. The memorize part, which is like what most students, what most business people are like really good at. Like I know these things, and I know these things, and I can apply these things. It's like
discounted cash flow.
You no longer
EBITDA.
you no longer need to know these things, because everything that you need, all of our previous knowledge, can be accessed from the thing that you carry with you, right? Like we don't, tribal knowledge to library knowledge to whatever is now available in our pocket, right? So you don't necessarily need and you couldn't have kept all that stuff in your gray matter anyway.
Right.
Now the next part of the equation, apply to what it means. I'm this is where every human being needs to double down. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily switch and you're I'm a systems thinker. But somewhere on that continuum, I understand the periodic table. I know actually what it means. I know what clusters of these elements mean. And I know how to apply that. If you stop there, good on you, right? If you can go even the step further and you're I know what it means and I understand the application of it, and I can think through what else it can do. I think that's the next phase, right? And right now we have people who are literally I totally get how strings work. Let me program some things. And you're okay, but can you tell me why this is important and what it means and how else I can apply it? And they're just
that's a lot of humanity. It's book smart. It's like intelligence, being intelligent versus being smart. And I think I try and figure out, how do I get the best information, right? Whether it's truthful, the best person who understands the most about, they could just give you insights that you wouldn't understand, because they have too much experience or so much experience. How do you get the best info, and how do you understand how to convert that to leverage in a non-confrontation, not non-confrontational, but like a non-Machiavellian or a non-nefarious way, right? And because we're going through a period of massive phase transition that's going to ripple back and forth all over the world, probably for it's going to be a 5-year and then a 15-year period. Because one of the things I kept thinking about, trying to trying to explain, what does exponential mean? That it's orders of magnitude, not just an incremental, you're gaining a few more, $1,000 or whatever in your 401k every year versus it's doubling every year or tripling. That's a massive change. And everybody felt like they aged a decade in 2020. And by 2030, it's going to feel like 100 years of change has happened, or you feel like you aged 100 years. And by 2040, it's going to feel like 1,000 years or a full millennium has elapsed. So when I go back and look at these like astrological cycles, I'm like, okay, is the 30 years war that happened in the Protestant Reformation that we're about to go through, is that really going to be 30 years, or is it going to be like a 3-year holy war that leads to something else? Because time is like compressing, because we haven't had this much interconnection, this much computational power, this much actual kinetic power that we could like plug in through like solar or nuclear or whatever. It's just a much more, there's more volume and amplitude and interconnection going through the system now than that's ever been possible. So I don't know. I think the people who are going to do really well, the people who are going to be most needed, are going to be the ones who aren't just really good systems thinkers, but they actually want to see the world thrive. And I think they're going to eventually become the next leaders, because what's going to happen everywhere, if this is like the Civil War and the American Revolution, it's not just going to be here, it's going to be everywhere. And it's going to be people being like, yeah, our government sucks too. Like, what the hell? Like, we need to change. Because you look anywhere, it's like digital ID in some countries. It's like, it doesn't, different. It's like a giant Silicon Valley test bed all over the world going on right now, and using humans as like test. And people don't want to be test subjects. They want to like live their lives.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I don't know. I honestly don't think it's going to be. I think you're going to see a lot of like wag the dog too, because again, like if wars are won with logistics, like it's cheaper just to like make people believe the mirage and AI than it is to actually go build a ship and blow stuff up.
Yeah.
And feed soldiers. So I don't know how it's going to be weird and interesting, but don't give up. That if anything, I think this is going to be testing everybody's spirit and resolve. And it's like, we've come this far, we're almost out to get to the next wave. And it's not like a sunk cost thing, like, oh, I've put 30 years in this life, I've done this thing. But it's like, no, we're this is the last push of this test before I think collectively, like, okay, this is not working for a lot of people. I mean, dude, what happens if we can't start making like payments to Social Security and like Medicaid and Medicare, or like food stamps? Like, if that doesn't happen, like there's gonna be a huge issue that, like, there's a lot of people with guns in the United States, and I don't think it'll be like armed conflict like that, but it's gonna be like you can't repress that many people all the time. Like, it just
No,
you're gonna run into another problem.
Like back to the stasis, right? Like, this country has had moments of strife and civil unrest, and what it
Yeah,
ends up happening is, after that happens, we either reject our principles in one direction or the other, we snap towards one thing or the other, and then we end up having a higher state and a longer period of prosperity, right? And I don't know that that's necessarily going to happen here. I really don't. Like, some things have been challenging for me, and some of my conventions that I've always lived by. One, I've spent a lot of time during my life in Silicon Valley, not just my work life, but my overall life. And I've watched that trend over the last almost 50 years. And it's different. Like, things are moving at a different pace, and they're moving in ways, like, to your point, that are much more compressed than they've ever been. The problem is, we keep throwing over things that it's like, oh, on to the next thing, because like this actually brings more profit. It's like, but wait a minute, like, the thing that we just ignored actually has a lot of inherent value and a lot of application that we could actually use, right? And instead we're like, on to the next thing, because like the profit margin in this is much higher. It's like, it's not sustainable. And I keep
right.
waiting for that I don't want to call it a bubble to burst, because that I honestly don't think any of the cycles that we've had, at least on the technology end, I get on the stock market side, they're bubbles, and that's real. But on the technology end, they aren't bubbles. They're like moments of contraction where people are like, wait a minute, like, this is not right. But like, if we do this, now we actually get a delivery of the thing that we were thinking of, and it's more extensible. And those moments, anybody that's afraid of those moments, I think you're not in the right mindset, and you're also not in the right gig. Like if you're heavily dependent on technology and you worry about those types of things and you consider them bubbles, you probably should think about something else, because like you might not have the stomach for that.
There's going to be a lot of change, and because technology is inherently like deflationary, right? So if like with Moore's law, if like the cost of a transistor falls by half every like 12 or what is it, 18 or 24 months or something.
It's dropped though.
18.
It's less than 18 months
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So it means more people have more capability than they ever have. And what's holding them back now is the mindset. Like we talked about this before about the designers, like, oh, I can code now. It's like the engineers ever said I couldn't code. And it's like, no, you can do whatever you want. Just like,
yeah,
you just got to push through and make it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's
I mean, I think that's what's going to separate the fearful from the next layer of leadership. Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here and be like, I think we're a little bit torn about how to kind of like frame this podcast about who it's for and what it's for, just because we have an unconventional skill set. We work asymmetrically, which is not, not to grate against the system, but to understand the limitations and strengths of the system to like, you go work it in a certain way, like without getting yourself shot or hurting anybody in the process.
We red
It's almost
things.
Like what? Yeah, not like red teaming in just like the infosec sense of like
in the business
you're designed
sense,
to be
in the life sense.
But like how do you build resiliency to withstand uncertainty?
Yes,
when the level of uncertainty is accelerating and increasing every day at an exponential rate.
I would argue that this episode is very much about the micro. Like in some ways, this is. I'm just going to throw it out there. Like we can chop it up and disagree. I think this is a very self-serving episode. I think you and I had a lot to say about this from the context in the box that is our lives and our experience. Like we thankfully have found one another and we have some commonality. Like when we call each other, we're like, holy shit, did you see this? And like,
oh yeah,
it can be things that are happening in our very like micro environment, like the greater New York area, the greater Silicon Valley area. And like, we're both like, oh yeah, dude. And like, this is going on. That is exactly that. And I don't know how to frame this episode other than it's purely self-serving. I'm hanging out with my friend and colleague and my co-conspirator in probably some of the most formative business ops. And you and I are just talking about how to survive like whatever's going on from our two perspectives as humans. Like that's, in my mind, that's what this episode's about. It's not really like, we're not actually teaching anything. Like I think we're just like, let's just like drop a bunch of stuff on the table and see what happens.
I also wonder if it's like you and I had the habit of just being really early, seeing what was happening, and this might just be kind of like an overture or like a preamble for what if the theme changes or whatever. I mean, I'm just down to hang out and like, mind meld across this kind of context and kind of talk about it. But it might be early for other people to kind of like catch on and see, but at some point it's going to become very clear that having a hacker mindset to just like, you're fueled by curiosity and putting different things together in unique ways. There's probably some kind of like a spiritual bent of like leave people better than they found you kind of thing. How we always talked about like red teaming, but all these things kind of like, it's
those things come together.
Yeah. And this is kind of what it's always been about. And I guess you can frame it for leaders, but it might be future leader. I don't know. I mean,
I think future leaders are probably like, and maybe now's the point where I share what happened to me yesterday, because in some ways highly positive, and two, it brings some of this together, and it is very future focused. And you can pepper me with questions or thoughts as well. So we took a tour of school because my son's about to exit 8th grade and has to go look for a different school to go to. Yeah, which is high school. Because his school stops at 8th grade, and he goes to a kind of specialized school for. The school isn't focused around learning disabilities, but there is a school within the school that is focused on dyslexia and dyslexic thinking, right? And it's to intervene and to prepare them to actually then go back to regular school. So we went and toured a school that I'll break it down into its basic forms. 1, project learning. 2, conceptual learning. So taking the atomic elements of whatever subject area that you're learning, and instead of saying this is science, I mean, they're not like, it's not like, hey, today in science we're going to talk about the history of coffee. But through the years, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade years, all of the classes have touch points, like a meshing, right? And so examples,
Nodes.
we're sitting in with the science teacher and he's talking about water. The lesson we sit down for 30 minutes to learn about is water. And he starts with like, here's the atomic structure of water, right? Like it's 1 part oxygen, 2 parts hydrogen, atomic weight of oxygen, 8 protons, the atomic weight of hydrogen, 2 protons, 2 covalent bonds holding the 2 hydrogen atoms to the 1 oxygen atom. Now, I'm going to put a piece of wax paper down. I'm going to give you a toothpick and I'm going to put a drop of water on the wax paper. Play. I'm not going to go through all the details, but like in a matter of 5 minutes, he explains adhesion,
Surface tension,
cohesion, hydrophobic properties.
Yep. Cool.
And he goes out and extends all these things, and then he shows you like what happens when water molecules bond together, because like, what you're doing is you're slicing a water molecule as you're moving things around with a toothpick. And then when you like touch the toothpick and all of a sudden like the toothpick's wet, you're seeing adhesion. And so he goes through all that, but then he says, that's not enough. Like, it's not enough to understand the chemical bonds. He's like, if I teach you the chemical bonds and I talk about, covalence, et cetera, and we talk about, all of the ways in which molecules bond together, he's like, 2 years from now, you're not going to remember any of this. And by the way, you can look all this up on any device, right? Like everything I'm teaching you, like you can have at your fingertips as you need it, and probably explain to you in a way that's going to work better for you. So he expands out from there, and he's like, so one of the things that we try and do is tie those things to other topics. And so he's like, if you go down to the 2nd floor of this building, you'll see on the wall the Columbian Exchange and the history of the Columbian Exchange, and how basically that event, or those set of events during that time period, set up the United States. This landmass is like being this super important landmass because it was like a link between, Central and South America and the old world of Europe. And he talks about all the things that were traded during that time. And he says, so one of the things that'll be interesting is if you go down there, what you're going to see is you're going to see the chemical compound for coffee. Actually, he's like, I'm going to correct myself. He's like, you're going to see the chemical compound for caffeine. And then he starts to talk about how coffee was traded, why it was important, how it's become important. And he's like, and what you're going to learn through this like poster series downstairs is like how coffee has become this like centralized compound that we all take in to run the world. Like,
yeah.
And
macro, micro.
It was super fascinating, as he went through this. And again, he went from that to like back to water, right? So they send the students out into the city. And so the second concept outside of this, like, project-based learning is city as classroom, right? It's like this, campus is like right in the middle of a very, very urban downtown environment. And so they send the kids out to do things like study the heat signatures of concrete and asphalt and wood and
awesome,
dirt and trees and everything else. And they're also studying like all of these. They go and collect dust particles from like gutters and the street and the sidewalk and everything. And so he comes back to this and he says, like, so one of the things that we learned through this is like water is actually pretty scarce around the campus. There's not a lot of water. There's not a lot of runoff, except for when it rains, and like it knocks all of this, like these particles from the street, like straight into the gutter, and all that like flows out to the sea, which kills sea life. And he's like, and the heat signature around here, because we don't get a lot of water and there's nothing to trap the water, or there's nothing to like hold any of the water, like the heat signature goes up. It's like we're actually like warming the planet, like with all of the buildings around here. So he goes on and on and on, and I'm not gonna like keep going with all the details because you had to sit there, and it was fascinating. It was very, like, for me, it was very emotional as well. In the end, the students realized in the science class all of these problems with the campus, and the students from like the civics class said, hey, did you guys know that the city council has taken up, because there's a school here now, like the school's only been in this location for the last 2 years, because there's a school here now, they're starting to put medians in between the sidewalk, the street, and there's a trolley line that goes through there, and they're trying to build a safe biking lane around there. And to do that, they have to put in these medians, which are currently planned to be asphalt and cement. So they say, well, why don't we like show the city council all of the studies that we've done about how this is the hottest district in the entire like city. Like, we go to the city council member who represents the district that the school's in, and we tell her, instead of putting in like a concrete and asphalt median, why don't we plant it? It's going to be cheaper because the dirt, the tree, and whatever is going to be infinitely less than maintaining the concrete or pouring the concrete or pouring the like asphalt. And every year the asphalt's going to break. And they did all these studies around this, and they went and they're like, so here's a study on the heat signature of District 3. Here, like, we know you're about to do this. We've actually gone and got cost estimates for like what it would take to do it in cement and what it would do to do it in like grass, trees, and plants. And it's like 30% what it's going to cost you to pour like the entire thing in cement.
Oh my God.
And she's like, okay. And she took in all their data, and essentially it was like, yeah, done. Trees, like ground cover.
Oh, so they actually did it?
They're doing it. They're tearing up the street.
That's impressive.
They're putting in
especially
a little
in San Francisco.
like concrete strip. And the rest of it's going to be like planted with trees and everything, which will like shade both like where you wait for the train, the bike lane, all the way around like the campus. And they're
That's
like,
awesome.
And what they're doing is they're now trying to figure out like other places they can do this in downtown to get the overall heat signature of downtown down in this particular area, like this District 3 area.
That's awesome.
So in the end, he comes back around to water, and he's like, this entire thing started with a study of water. Like, what does it do? How does it work? What's it good for? What's it used? Like, why is it important? What does it mean to humans? What does it mean to society? And he's like, and from water, we got to this like whole change of like, how do you change the environment around you? He's like, that's what the future state of education needs to do. He's like, if I like just teach you the periodic table and I tell you how important water is, what are you going to do with that? If I don't teach you like how to think about water and why water is important and what water enables and like why people fight over it and why it's going to be more of a commodity, and I don't give you a reason to think about how you might change your behavior, or, again, he's not like trying to, like, they're very apolitical, which is also great. But he's like, if I don't give you that type of thinking and get you to get curious and like look at the system that water sits in, like what am I actually teaching you? And what value is it going to have? I was just like, I want my kid to go to this school.
Yeah, I want to go to this school. I mean, just thinking about like the way they kind of teach you how to see and how things kind of connect in a logical fashion without getting into like coffee and geopolitics without like talking about like the crazy political stuff. But also, I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, the city council didn't want to do it because of
No, they
some
did it.
political thing.
They're
Yeah,
doing
which
it.
I was impressed. I'm surprised. Yeah, because it's
Well, I
like,
mean, but like,
but
how can you resist it, right? They're coming with. We've done the
yeah.
and they went and grabbed like the NOAA. Like NOAA has, the satellite imagery of the area,
Oh, awesome.
and
That's
so the heat
fucking
signature
cool.
is real. But like, what he did is he's used the students over the last 3 years to like on the ground study. Like they're out there with heat guns, like looking at the things and like determining, oh, in this space, asphalt, like in this exact space, asphalt is like 10 degrees hotter than it is like 5 blocks away. And
Whoa.
they brought in all this data, but then like you and I have always said, you're leveraging the system. It's like it's cheaper if you don't do this. It's cheaper if you do this, and it's going to be better for like the city, for the environment, and ultimately the planet, right? Like by
Yeah.
doing this, and it saves you money. Like why would you not do this? And the city council's like, why would we not do this? I mean, totally like Jedi
Because
mind trick that shit.
that's the way, but I like how it's like apolitical too, because then it's like, okay, let's try and actually find a better solution based on real data and behavior change and like all these things together. That's 20 minutes ago. I'm like, I wonder if this is going to become a podcast about how do you actually really be a change agent, not like a cliche like, oh, I'm a change agent, I'm doing this stuff, but like, no, how do you actually affect positive, beneficial societal change? And obviously it's like, well, who decides and what's the right metric or whatever, but
Well,
I think
he said
it's
it. He's like, you have to think about the system. And I was like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Like total quote. I just like, afterwards, I was like, I went up to him and I'm like, I kind of want to give you a hug and I'm sorry. Like, I know that's really weird for like a parent, like a prospective parent to come up to you. He's like, yeah, you're not the first.
well, think about if you have other Silicon Valley parents who are probably, there's going to be more than one. There's going to be people also there who are systems thinkers, and they're going to see it and be like, this is amazing, because it's just teaching kids how to really think at multiple levels to build a solution with like limited resources, but to, do the right thing.
I think
That's awesome.
there's a whole class. It was funny because like, we're afterwards, like, I think it's going to be competitive to get in there. I do.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a whole class of parents there that are going to self-select out. Like, I want my kid to learn the periodic table and like, the value
really?
of like, oh yeah, dude. Yeah.
Why
Because
wouldn't you want to have your kid do that though?
if you are not that type of thinker and you've seen success by doing the thing that we're talking about, like learning the periodic table, like element by element, or learning all of the laws of geometry and ultimately being able to like regurgitate that when called upon. And trust me, there's a lot of that going on. A plus B, A squared, B squared, whatever, C squared,
Yeah.
like, the, cut the square this way. I've proven that, the hypotenuse exists. Like, I mean, and like the math class that we were in, Alex, he had the opportunity of doing like 4 different exercises, Keith, and one of them was observe. And what do you think this guy chose? He chose to be an observer because he's lazy, or so I thought. Observing didn't mean just sit there and like watch. Observing meant I'm going to hand you a worksheet, like the kind of shit that you and I would like hand to somebody. Like, okay, you're going to go and look at this situation. Come back with your like notes. Come back with like the notes from the field. Like, what did you see? How did it work? What did it do? And like at the end, there was like a 3-question test that was like, what were the communication, like, what was the structured communication? What was the outcome? Like, what would have made that outcome like a higher degree of outcome? Like, I mean, it was like the total shit that you and I do for a living. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, buddy, it's like you're coming to work with me. And I am like, we were both in the observing group because I'm like, I'm going to go be an observer because I don't give a shit about the square root of the hypotenuse.
Periodic tables. Yeah.
And I'm furiously scribbling notes. I'm like, as I'm like, observe this, and then now observe this. And I'm like, making notes. I'm talking about all the things I'm seeing, and I flip
Systems
the thing
thinking
over,
school.
and I'm like, scribbling my answers to the thing. And the entire time my son's like this. And I was like, on the back before they let us out of here, she may come around to our group and ask us like to produce.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know. I'm like, okay. So he's not scribbling. He's like going down the flow diagram basically, and he's circling different things and he's underlining and he's writing a word here or there. But generally he's like this the entire time. And then I'm like, okay, like the 5-minute warning's coming. You better like write some things down, because if you don't, it might be a little weird if you're like, I don't know. I mean, that's not a great look in a school that you're trying to get into. I mean, again, he may not be trying to get in there, but I want him to go there.
Yeah.
So he flips over the thing. He writes a sentence for each thing, sets it down. And I'm like, I can't resist. I have to pick up the paper and read. So I do. And like, he's nailed it. But he's done the TLDR of every single thing that I've written.
He's
like
efficient.
A paragraph. He's written like a sentence and a half. But he's like,
keep up, Dad.
He's like dead on. And I was just like, oh man.
Such a parent moment of like, what are you gonna do the work to the school we're trying to get you into to like not make us both look bad?
And he's like, I got this.
Done.
Yeah. Well, and then, in the science class, so 2 things with science class, and sorry, like this is now just gone into the personal side. So like, I go to the bathroom in between switching from the math class to science class, and Anna's there, and she's got a friend, her, childhood friend from England's here too, who's a teacher. So we dragged her on this school tour, and I come back from the bathroom and Susie, her friend, sitting out front. I was like, hey, are they in there? And she's like, no, like Anna went to go and find Alex. I guess he didn't go into the class. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go in there and listen. So I go in there and Alex is in the class. And I was like, so I exit again and I'm like, hey, Susie, like, just can you let Anna know he's actually in the class? Like, he didn't bolt. So we're sitting there, and when the whole like exchange part comes up, he's like, he looks at me and he's all, yeah, I know about this. And I was like, well, tell me about it. And he explains it, as kind of in line to what the teacher's saying, like slightly ahead of what the teacher's saying. And he's like, yeah, like this is what, like, it's one of the reasons why America is as valuable as it is. I'm like, okay, like, where did you learn that? He's like, school. Like, come on. I was like, it's like, I didn't learn this in school. And he's like, well, I did.
Well, I mean, you didn't just put him in like public school the whole time too. You guys tried to get him in some different spots to kind of like, help him out a little bit, or find good. Dude, I don't know, man. School is one of those things now where I'm like, high school wasn't bad, but at the same time, it was like so like Henry Ford factory based that it wasn't teaching you how to like build a model of the world and understand how to like act as like a sentient human being within it.
You can still go to that school. Most of them are that way. Most of them are that way.
It makes you wonder about education and like unions and stuff. Like, I mean, because it's a giant voting block. It's a giant political block that, I don't know. I think with internet and everything now and AI, it's just like there's so many different resources now. You still need the human element. And I think like that kind of a school is like, that's amazing because it's just, they're teaching you how to like become like productive members. Yeah. And be productive, like be a productive member of society, not just like.
Well, and to draw conclusions, figure out meaning and attach meaning to things and solve problems. Like I was like, again, it's all the shit that you and I are totally motivated to. And, honestly, like I wasn't really sold on it after the math class. I wasn't really sold on it after like they had this other thing that's like an experience class, which kind of gets you to think about systems, like, and it was within the classroom, like think about the system of certain things that are going on in the classroom. But the science class sold me on it. I was just like, he's literally saying science is one of the languages that you need to have that explains meaning, that brings data, so that you're not like feeling something and like making a decision based on that. You're like you're going through the scientific method to actually like bring the data. And that was his whole point with the whole city council thing. It's like you bring the data, and based on the data, you make a decision. And I was just like, I totally
how to troubleshoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like half intuition, half empirical, scientific method. Like you need both. You can't just do one or the other. It's understanding how to synthesize them and when to like lean on one more than the other.
Yep.
But they don't teach that anywhere. I mean, the only way you learn that is if like you had a hard time growing up because you feel like you didn't fit in, and it became like a survival mechanism to kind of like understand how to navigate society and whatever.
Well, like back to the hopeful part. Like I'm hopeful that maybe we're turning a corner and these things are all like, again, to this massive shift. Like I really hope that we're turning a corner, and on the other end of the massive shift, it's going to be like, okay, we need to change our framing of this stuff. Like we have to get curious about solving these problems. We have to get curious about like forging a new system of these things and understanding it and like being deliberate. Like a lot of these systems that we're living in now, and like the further I get into them and the more like I'm like, well, why do we do this? It's like, no,
because we've always done it this way, man.
Yes, dude. Yes. The picture of like everybody in the wigs. Like it's that. Hey, one thing I was curious about, have we gotten to the point yet where we can buy a computer that is faster than the human brain for under $1,000? I don't think we have.
Well, I think if you rent $1,000 of like computational time through like a bank of like H100s, maybe.
Yeah,
but I don't think
mean,
it's
like how much thought are you going to be processing? There.
I mean, okay, so now you have the empirical data, and technically the number checks out, but is it accessible for everybody?
No.
I don't know. I think
your barrier to entry there is like quite high. It's really high. Trust me.
So I think that was
high it is.
optimistic. Yeah. Well, yeah. So because that was on a slide that we pulled, like paraphrasing Kurzweil in the beginning a long time ago. So I don't think we can do that yet. I mean, maybe by 2030. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, by 2030, I think we'll be there. I think absolutely. Like I don't have any reservation about that. Just seeing what I'm seeing. But
yeah, but
the accessibility of it still, I think, might be an issue. To your point. I mean, directionally, yeah, we're right. Like absolutely.
With Macy's, it was just like they're so archaic, and they're thinking like they thought of the real estate as an asset to leverage against for debt and to pay off expenses for shit that they tried doing that just blew up. And instead of being like, dude, you could integrate all of these things inside the real estate and make like this magic box of experience. And they're like, what? It's like,
they're like, no,
no, it was like a sacred cow. Like they're like, don't touch the real estate. Don't even think about it. And it was like, I think that in hindsight, if we had done that again, I would have been like, all right, fuck it. Let's figure out a way to get to like the guy who's running the real estate to talk to him and show him to be like, we're not Muppets. But then that may have gotten you fired at some point because they would have been like, what the hell are you doing talking to the real estate people? Because it's just, imagine Liz and them. Like they would have been like, what the hell? They wouldn't have understood at all. I know.
Well, I mean, so that part, definitely right. And then what you sent the other day about the 8, sort of the 8 horsemen, if you will. I mean, you were pretty spot on with that as well. Like all of that is legit and reality.
What was the I forget what the 8 horsemen was again.
You just sent it to me. It was hang on. The post-COVID prophecies.
Oh, from the case study I wrote.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like that was spot on.
Well, I mean, that's
you got a picture.
That's been the hard part. It's like showing. You can't just show your work with systems thinking like, revenue grew this one year. It's like, dude, Macy's was like, we're not a tech company, and like having them hire a CTO, even though it was from internal, like that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And then they could have gotten them like one of the head guys on the board was a fucking ex-CEO of Home Depot. It's like they could have built a little fab lab to do all these like little the outdoor eating that popped up during COVID. and they had all this extra space that they could have used for social distance. It's like they just had all these resources that could have not only leveraged to make economic good, help society, but they could have also leveraged like the media PR element of it. But everybody at every level was so old school in their thinking. But it's not just their fault though. It's like the system punishes individual thought. So if you don't keep up with that, it's, you basically get crucified in the process.
Well, that's the systems that I'm really hoping break down.
They're gonna have to. Like they're gonna, otherwise someone's gonna vibe code a new business and it's gonna be disruptive relative to like the Claire Christensen model of the incumbent's gonna think it's a toy and they're gonna go out of business.
I mean, not
not
that I
work.
want to bring the work or the business part in, but like two things related to that since we're kind of on this topic. I did the FBI board with a couple of people that I'm collaborating with right now against this project and product that we're building. And
oh, you mean like the org chart?
Yeah.
I thought you meant I'm thinking FBI background check from like work. I'm like, wait a second.
No.
I'm like,
yeah, you're in a different.
My mind was
now.
Yeah,
you're in a different. You're
mapping the org chart.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, so yeah, the mapping the org chart, like the shadow org chart.
So remember what I was telling you before we started recording today about the sales orgs and like how I'm all of a sudden I'm just getting
you're an asset.
Spammed. I'm getting spammed by salespeople, and I start looking. Man, it's like I always got to be careful. So like, I'm just gonna say this. I'm looking up my chain to the top.
Yep.
And it's like me, designer, person above me, designer, person above him, engineer, person above him, engineer. Not only like not just software engineer, but like infrastructure engineer, right? This is my stack. And then I'm like, hang on a minute. And above him is the CEO, right? And then I'm like looking at, so I'm like, I'm going to spend an hour looking at his, I'm going to build the FBI org chart from his POV.
That's what we did. Smart.
And like, what do I get to? I get down after about 30 minutes to the people that I'm working with in the sales org, which ladder up like to 2 VPs, both in sales, that report directly to the CEO. And so
VPs are a big deal.
And I'm just like a VP and an SVP who are like essentially 2 hops from these 2 other like sales orgs that I'm dealing with now. And I'm just
moving laterally, dude.
I'm like, that's my play, right? Like going and having a meeting with a bunch of engineers and talking about the value. Like it's funny because like one of the engineers near the top is like, do X, which is the thing that I've been doing. It's just the translation down is the piece where it gets muddy, right? Like
implementation. Yeah.
This. And so I'm like, well, if I come at it from this angle and I go have a meeting with this SVP in the sales org, I think I'm getting a meeting with the CEO via that guy versus going up my stack.
And it's not about being an opportunist. It's understanding that the work you've done has created value that can extend and solve other people's problems. So it's like the seeding social capital thing as a lateral movement. And that's what it's combining all these things in a way to get in front of the right person who has a definitive yes or no vote. Because everybody's got a bunch of no votes. They're going to be like, yeah, I don't want to do it because they don't want to do it. But finding the right yes vote is very few. And that's it. I don't know. It's you have to like roll like an intelligence operation, but you have to like, as cliche as it sounds, like have like a good heart about what you're doing. Like you can't try and like be, if you're in like politics, like people are going to do things you're not going to want to do, and they're going to be harder to beat because they're willing to do things you're not willing to do. But the way we operate, I think it's a better. It's like with the iterative prisoner's dilemma. It's better to do the most altruistic thing continuously until you get screwed, and then you do tit for tat post facto, or you just cut them out and you move laterally, which is, you're seeing the writing on the wall probably in a lot of different ways, and finding a way to kind of like, build the right solution out. So,
which I think, again, like to your point, I'm trying to deliver value, and I'm trying to deliver value incrementally, and I'm trying to deliver value as quickly as I possibly can. Like, these are actually concepts for me that are new. I'm not going to say that I didn't understand them or know them. I did. I don't know that I've ever been in an environment that has encouraged that or values that. But back to the macro situation and what you just said about, everybody's going to become an entrepreneur, that's actually true. And so if you're not moving in a way that delivers value as soon as possible to either yourself or the organization that you work in, you might as well like rethink your whole strategy. Because one of the things that I could be very monolithic. Like, I have a very robust, I'm speaking of this particular product. It's like, I have a very robust set of product features, but some of them are like high complexity and they are valuable. But if I'm waiting to deliver value until I can solve those like technical complexities or those system complexities, I'm probably going to like do myself out of this product. But by delivering value and going after things that are like lower hanging fruit and basically proving the point, it's harder to shut it down because it's like it's already delivering value, right? It's not a future state of value or a statement of future value. It's basically like, well, it's already delivering value, and by enhancing it to this point, I'm actually going to deliver another layer of value. And like by enhancing it again to this other layer, like I get closer to the technical complexity that I need to solve. But at every point, instead of like waiting for that value, I'm already delivering value. And I think that's the new way that everybody in product is going to need to think about it. Like, if you can't deliver value in the shortest period of time, rethink your strategy, because like somebody's going to beat you to it, and it might not do all of the things that your product does or your solution does, but it's gonna build a foundation that you're gonna have a harder time competing against. And like that's the piece that I think, like, what you said sparked that other thought for me, which is like everybody's basically an entrepreneur at this point. I think that's absolutely right. Like the entire internet is in beta at this point. It's absolutely in
it's
beta.
the internet relative to Tim Berners-Lee, the World Wide Web, I think is just finished its Saturn return. So it's like the second iteration, the grown-up version of the internet is evolving right now. And on like the delivering value part, so delivering value, it's not just like, adding more value, making, saving money or whatever. There's a very logical progression of where the future of the product and the service of whatever you're building is going to go. So as you're delivering, you're thinking as like a product person, how that's going to continue to like compound benefit. So it's not just like incrementally in terms of like, 10% net, profit every year or whatever. It's incrementally showing them how it's getting better, because you're building trust and social capital that way with the right people, especially as you move up, because now it's not just can you do it and deliver, it's are you going to be low risk relative to them to have any blowback.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And also like the sunk cost. I'm defraying the sunk cost quarter over quarter versus like you're not going to see value out of this for a year from now. Like that's expensive. That is a really expensive proposition. Like no value for a year. And then like to your point, you're eroding trust, but you're also in a place where like you're ratcheting up the bar that you have to deliver in, because who knows what's going to be happening in a year from now. And so like it's a defensible product position now. I'm learning a bunch of things now. I'm changing the direction as we go versus like massive launch and then trying to figure those things out, right? Like I am lowering my threshold for risk every single time we deliver something. And you're getting all of this net positive benefit of like right now it's an efficiency play, but eventually it will be a revenue driving play. And the efficiency, like driving the efficiency up and the cost down, has a value like right in this moment, and it's like
Yeah.
defraying my ongoing development and R&D costs. Like it's actually like I hadn't really put all those pieces together until about 3 or 4 months ago. Like it was still a hack back then, and I don't mean the product, but like this method was a hack. It was like
The social gambit.
I am building something that is going to be too big and too valuable to fail, and it can't be taken away from me, right? Like that was the hack. And now
Too big
it's
to
like
fail, too big to shut down.
too big to shut down. And now it's like you have all of this financial data behind it, right? Like, hey, we're lessening the cost to get something into market by X% over every like week, right?
Dude, that's every company wants that. Do more with less, get more efficient. I mean, that's just in the market we're going into with higher interest rates and more competitive inflationary markets. It's like that.
I mean, if you can't drive value now, it's like fourth time I'm saying it, rethink your strategy. Like, that's the hack. Like, damn it, Keith, we ended up talking about business. Didn't want to talk about business
it's not
today.
like, well, it's all
related.
Yeah, but it's not like, that's why it's so hard to like pin this thing down as like who it's for, what it's for. Like for me at least, because I'm like, it's all these pieces together. It's like if
it is a big system and a universe all unto itself.
Yeah, well, you gotta grow. Like this is why I like weightlifting, because as you do progressive overload where you add more like weight, add more reps, add more sets, whatever, it still feels hard. Like it's like no matter what you do, if you keep pushing the bar, and it's not like we must grow in a parasitic way to like, what's that called? Like greed, and a greed kind of mental model. But like you got to push yourself. Like this is what it's all about. And I think
it's a growth mindset applied in some way, right? Like I think all the things that we're talking about are like very growth mindset, but like you have to apply it across all these things, and you can't be afraid of any of these dimensions, right? Like even like back to the top where you were like, you kind of like, and this is not me being judgy at all. Like this is like you gave a caveat. You're like, hey, you might not believe in this line of thinking around, astrology. Like that's a smart hedge on your part, right? Like, because there are a lot of people that are going to be like turned off by that. But at the end of the day, it's, and you said it earlier, it's like information and it's like a system of thinking, and belief doesn't necessarily need to come into it. There's a science there that you can still see. It's like, it's a timeline, it's positions,
certainly
what it is.
An analytical method. Yeah. There's so much noise. I mean, having done sound design in the past, like learning how to deal with noise and how to like get more signal out of noise, or how to build a complete picture with like, pieces of information that aren't always either accurate or right, or might be misleading because you're working with people who don't want you to like succeed. That's, it's like I said, it's like an intelligence operation all the time, but trying to actually make this work for everybody in the best way possible.
Yeah. Well, it might be a good place for us to leave for today, because we're at like an hour and 40 something minutes.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's whole commute.
I mean, hopefully this is good though. I think about, I'm part of the challenge with LinkedIn and how to like present myself to is like, I put a lot of resources into all these different things, like almost going to work for the feds, doing like intelligence, like studying astrology, like it's not, there's a stigma with each of these things. When you put like 4 or 5 of them together, it's like, oh my God, it's like 6 eyes are like an alien kind of thing. But at some point, I don't know, supposedly the waves will be just right because people are going to want something unconventional. They're going to need it because they're just not going to want to, but they're going to see people who can actually get things done, but also see like new thinking that actually works for a lot of different people. So
yeah,
I like this too big to fail, too big to shut down.
Yeah.
I like that as like a,
it's kind of like a little, should be a little mini mantra.
Yeah. If you ever write a book, that'll be your book. Too big to fail, too big to shut down. It'd be the inside story.
Yeah. I mean, again, we can bring in on all the hacks because everything starts with a hack. Like, it's funny, like when you start telling people that, like that you work with, like you're like when you and I were working together and we were pulling in Till and Jeff and other people, it's like they kind of get excited about that. Like, oh, I'm hacking this thing. And you're like, yep, you are. Like, you are now, like, you see the light, you see the system, you see the mechanics, you're hacking it. But you do have to go from that very human way of being into like, okay, but like, what are we actually doing with this? And like, you and I have done a lot
Where's
of
it going?
critical analysis, like after the fact. There's like, we had very hacky goals, right? We're like, we got to get into the CEO's office. We want to present in the boardroom. And like, we achieved all those things. And we did drive revenue. Like, it's definitely one of the things in my case study. It's like, look, you can see when this thing got folded back into the mothership, like stock price dropped.
Yeah.
Value went down. Like they lost value. But there were other things that I think you and I could have been way more precise about. Like, okay, we need this. You actually want to like pour fuel on this. This is what you need to do. And, thankfully, like I think I learned a bunch of those things after the fact, and it took, 2 other jobs, but finally the application of some of those things is like actually worked out where it's like, okay, the case study kind of continues in some way. Right. So
yeah, it evolves. I mean, we were learning how to actually make it work and how not to get shot in the process.
Yep.
And you never really know who is going to hurt you, who's going to help you. And doing change, working with the CEO directly and going top down is way easier than building like a benevolent counterinsurgency from the ground up, which is what we did.
Yep.
And actually seeing it work, like after we left, having them do the changes, like getting a Google guy on the board and building a real distribution center that was automated and things that, made sense or should have made sense 10 years ago, but
it took them a while.
You do what you can. Yeah. But better late than never, I guess. So
yeah. Anyway, let's leave it there.
Awesome. Cam, man. Always a pleasure, dude.
Yeah, Keith. Same. I'm glad we did this one. I am.
Yeah, me too. This is, wasn't as organized as I wanted to be with the astrology, but like, whatever. It's all good. It's like at some point, it's just kind of want to, I think we both need to kind of just get outside the system to kind of find our way back at some point.
Yeah. And I mean, I think you needed to introduce that part of it. Like we haven't really talked about that. I'm glad we like threw that out and, we'll come back to it. I think it brings in another dimension that we've behind the scenes been using, kind of to our advantage.
Oh, yeah.
And, again, now you've introduced it and we can start to insert that into the system as well. So thanks.
Awesome.
I appreciate you going out there and even though it wasn't as organized as maybe it could have been, I think one of the things that like we've been good about is just being like go with the flow. Cause like that's at the end of the day, like put the value out there.
Exactly. I gotta make it actionable, Cam. Like you're preaching at the end. You gotta make it happen.
Yep. All right, man.
Well, thanks for letting me have the space to do it too, Cam. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy, like literally, that we went this route. Like I've been pushing on this for a little bit, and I'm glad that you took the bait today.
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, okay, we'll come. We'll TBD, to be continued in some way.
For sure. All right, man. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, Cam, man. Take care. All right.
You too. See ya.
All right. Later.